Like, that would be crazy. And then for those of us who don't get the joke, Bill Clinton also did this. Republicans pitched a fit before, and Democrats said, listen, president has full discretion to pardon whoever he wants. That's just presidential pardon. Again, black letter law. Now it's bad when Trump does it. Democrats are hypocrites. Now we win politics forever.
We went too long.
Yeah.
We tried so hard. We came so far.
Okay. Next. Okay. We'll just speed run it. Libertarian news. I don't know if I mentioned it last time, but Nick Sarwark put out a tweet saying that the Democrats should work with libertarians because of all the work libertarians did spoiling the election for Trump. Here's the problem with this idea. I think that the LP does. Okay. So now I'm going to share some thoughts I have, but I can see the look in Dan's eyes, and it's our podcast together.
Tuning out.
When you spoil an election, you don't start demanding things from the winner. You demand things from the loser in exchange for you not spoiling next time, right? And the thing about that demand is that you don't actually even need to credibly promise to do it, because if they fulfill your demands, in theory, they should peel off your voters, right? You should tell when libertarians spoil elections for Republicans, they should tell Republicans what happened was because you nominated the reincarnation of Huey Long for the presidency. Don't do that next time, and we won't spoil the election for you. And then Republicans should learn that lesson and nominate, Mitt Romney instead of Donald Trump, right? That is how third parties move big parties in their direction. I have a friend of mine who I consider to be very smart, who finds this idea completely insane and suicidal, because libertarians won't get what they want by doing that. Here's the newsflash, though, friend of mine. Libertarians never get what they want, right? But the way that you get what you want in politics is by inflicting consequences on people who don't do what you like. And you're not going to get what you want by I'm arguing with somebody else now, right? You don't get what you, and he can't respond because it's not even you. You don't get what you want in politics by slowly infiltrating the party. The neocon takeover of the Republican Party was not done by a bunch of college students who were arguing with Charlie Kirk at his conventions. The way they took over the party was they had jobs at the State Department, they had institutional connections, and they got into the party through the front door. And if a senator steps out of line, then if they step out of line like McCarthy did, they get censured by the Senate, and then they get primaried. Or like Ilhan Omar, a bunch of money comes in to their primary opponent and their general opponent at the same time. And during their primary, both their primary opponent and the general opponent only attack them. Okay? And there are consequences for mainstream politicians who step out of line on issues that the party cares about. Right? They step out of line and there's well-funded opposition. The party doesn't just pick people who won't betray them. They punish you for betraying them. And the libertarians who aren't in the party, the only way they can punish people who betray them is by forcing them to lose.
What about black on black crime?
No, Dan, I want to talk about this for a little while. I want to know. Okay, I want to know what do you we all know the Libertarian Party
stopped working. I overplayed.
Right. I mean, Dan, we both share a dismal view of the Libertarian Party at this point, right?
No, I think they're. Did you know they're America's third largest party, Marcel?
Okay, so neither of us are LP shills. Okay, anybody listening to this podcast knows that neither of us like the way the Libertarian Party has moved for the past, ever. Right? We don't think.
If anyone from the LP is listening,
pay us.
Yeah, pay us, and we'll be sure. Yeah. We have a growing audience.
Yeah. The point of voting third party, though, is that you have a concrete list of demands, right? When Republicans lose and they see what can we do to peel off libertarian votes, libertarians have a nice list, which is their party platform. And I think that's the role of third party. Dan, what do you think? So we were having some problems with Craig just now, but we were talking about the role of the Libertarian Party and what third parties are for. And Dan was evading, properly addressing the question.
Why you have this gathering place that's an educational outreach program, you are also pretending that you're running presidential. And these fake campaigns might as well be good for something. So if you're going to do that, I said before, I said this already, talked about this. Again, we're talking about the same shit over and over again. But that's fine. It's your show too.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, for the political campaign, your goal would be not to try to go out there and be like, non-aggression, zero aggression principle, or all these.
You got to speak up more because your sound's not coming in well.
Okay. What you would do is instead of giving people a broad, philosophical thing, give them a platform of specific bullet points, policies. Ideally, less than 5. That doesn't mean that those 3 or 5 things are all that you care about. It means that you pick 3 or 5 important that you can sell, and you hammer those. And that's how that would work. You would say, end the war and Fed or whatever. End the lockdown, cut taxes, whatever your things are. And you just push on those 3 or 5 things. And then that is what you would come to the losing side with. Go, hey, we certainly were a problem. Actually, you wouldn't even have to do it. Like you said, you would not. You would just do it. You would say, these are our 3 things. And we're going to campaign on those every year. And then the side that is closer to you, one of the sides will, hey, if we took 1 or 2 of those things, we might be able to take their vote.
Mm-hmm.
You would never have to go begging pathetically like this.
No, you should say it like a terrorist. You should say, give me what we want. Sorry, give me what I want, and I won't destroy us both next time.
But the point is, you wouldn't have to say.
Yes.
Everyone who's smart would just say, hey, there's this group of people, they get 5%, they get 1% of the vote, which is enough to sway the difference, and they only talk about 3 things. We could add those 3 things into our next candidate and peel off some of their votes. This is like the idea. I get your point, but as a purposeful strategy, where then you go to the losing side and you, oh, I'm very smart. Why don't you take some of my? That's pointless. It's stupid. It's pathetic. You go and beg to them. Hey, maybe I have an idea. If you did some of the things we like, maybe you could get some of our votes. As if the LP could tell their members to vote Republican.
Right.
The point is, you just do this. The point is, what he's doing.
Party members influence party platforms, but then also party leadership influences its members' positions. Right? I mean, parties conduct outreach, they do education. Like the LP could just agree not to, it's like, hey, well, if you move closer, we'll also not call your guy a Nazi, and our publications like Reason Magazine won't attack you anymore. I mean, there are things the LP can do to encourage its people to vote Republican, right?
Yeah.
Right. Just say, hey, Reason Magazine, no more things about how Trump is a Nazi. And plenty of ideas.
You're right.
And we'll get back to that Reason Magazine thing momentarily. Okay, I guess we'll just do it. So, Dan, do you know about Section 230?
Yes.
Can you want to summarize it for the audience?
Why does that feel like you just think I don't know?
Well, no. Actually, it's the other way around. I know you know, but since we both know, I figure I don't want to just drone on and step on your line, so I want to give you an opportunity to speak.
Okay.
This isn't a challenge. This is charity.
What happens is once I start, I'm going to give a really rough description of it, and then you're going to start coming in with your autism, giving me corrections about, actually, this, actually, it's that. Well, what it is, blah, blah, blah. And then we're off into the fucking races on another rant. I'm just sitting here silently staring at a microphone.
Okay, I promise. Whatever explanation you give, as long as it's like broadly valid, I'm just gonna jump off from it for the actual point I wanted to make. But I won't correct.
Okay, there is a bill called the Communications Decency Act, blah blah blah. It relates to internet speech. There's a section of that bill that says that, quote, no provider or user of an interactive or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. The usual analogy is that the phone company or Discord lets me and Marcel talk to each other, but if Marcel says one of his horrible things that you're not supposed to say, Discord's not in trouble because they're not a publisher. But if Marcel posts something, for the New York Times that is offensive, the New York Times is answerable for it. So if Marcel goes on the New York Times editorial page, says something that is suable, they can sue the New York Times because they published it. But if he goes on the telephone and says the same thing, the telephone company is not going to get sued because they're not publishing him. They're just a platform. They're a communication service or whatever. And the idea is that this bill, that section of that bill, allows places like Facebook and Twitter to be treated like a phone company. So that when I go on Twitter, Marcel goes on Twitter, he says that maybe we should spend slightly less money to Israel. Twitter is not on the hook for what Marcel says. Not a publisher. They're just a place where anybody can say anything. They're like a bulletin board or a phone. And the controversy over this is that people are upset because they say that Twitter is not like the phone, because if I go on the phone and I say something, Nancy Pelosi doesn't like, the phone company does not shut off my service. But if I go on Twitter and I'm the president of the United States and I say and I tell something like, oh, there's a decertification process going on in Georgia, my tweet is flagged. No one's allowed to see it. Okay. Add your 2 cents.
Okay.
Thank you for your restraint.
So, having that, so we see the contradiction of the complaint. So, a lot of conservatives who are aware of this sort of thing, what they said was, if Facebook is going to be like this, then we should take away their Section 230 protection. If they're going to claim to be a platform but act like a publisher, we should treat them legally like a publisher and put them on the hook for what they don't censor. If they want to censor even a little bit, we're going to make it so they better censor everything or risk getting sued. The idea being that, they'll say, well, we can't get everything, so we'll go back to censoring basically nothing. And that is a viable threat. They can either do what you want or be punished. However, Trump has decided that he wants to repeal Section 230 entirely, which is bad, you see. If you repeal Section 230, that leads to more censorship, not less. Trump is effectively asking Congress to kill the hostages. Do you see? Because they have liability protection, and then what conservatives saying, like, listen, we have a gun to your liability protection's head, all right? If you don't do what we want, which is let us post, about stopping the steal, right? Then we will kill this hostage. That is your liability protection. And then we'll see and then they'll say, well, hold on. If you kill the hostages, then you have no leverage. It's like, we'll see. You better do what we want or we'll also kill the hostage. And then Trump is like, kill the hostages immediately. Right? And everybody's like, well, yeah, like, I want to kill these hostages to teach them a lesson about not. It's like, no. We don't want, the hostage takers, the whole point of taking a hostage is that it aligns incentives between the person making the threat and the person being threatened, right? Because you get what you want, what you're demanding, and they get what they want, a living hostage. But Trump is like, no, just repeal Section 230. It's like, but then the hostage dies. That's super dumb.
I kind of, tuned in and out of that, but I think what you're saying is that, for example, Time Magazine, they are not under Section 230 publishing platform. But that doesn't mean that they let me write for them. Why would Twitter why wouldn't they get worse and say, oh, well, since we're a publishing platform, we have to purge all these people who are offensive? Which means, yes, that probably will cut both ways, because what it'll do is it'll turn Twitter from a place where any asshole goes on and says shit, and some of them get banned.
They'll